If you like this video, make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell icon to get the latest updates.
Hey Karuna, good evening. Can you hear me? Hope you're guys doing fine.
Yeah, all good. How about you?
Good. Okay, so let's get started for today's session. I'm gonna I'm already sharing my screen, so let me know. Just confirm if you're able to see.
Yes, Abhay, I can see.
Okay.
Yeah.
So before we get just started, just quick update. So over the discussion board, I had updated few stuff. So did you guys got a notification in your email?
Yes.
Okay. So there should be a couple of notification because I created a post in this discussion board, and later during my daytime, I had edited it and added more information.
Okay, let me see that.
The reason why I'm asking is to make sure that whatever we are posting here, you are getting notified. And obviously, if sometime you want to communicate me or send me some kind of information or some anything, I should be able to receive the notification as well.
What did you? All I got is a confirmation that nothing. It just says that. What did they update? Tenant
So,
the details. No, I didn't get that one.
okay, so you can see my screen, right? I am onto the discussion board tab, and if you see over here, I had made two updates. One is I had pasted couple of links for you, the REST API and the SOAP API open source link provided by the Workday. Additionally, I had attached two documents. So one comprising of the tenant details, basically the tenant, community tenant, which you would be using going forward.
Oh, I didn't get that email. No.
Oh,
Can
really?
you update it again?
How about you, Karuna? Did you receive it?
No, I didn't get it either, Abhi.
Oh, okay. So can you please check with the moderator after this session that the trainer is posting the updates on the discussion board, but you guys are not receiving the notifications.
Sure.
Sure, Abhi, yeah.
Yeah, but certainly for now, you have your tenants, which you can use it. The credentials are over here. So let me just open and show you this document. Basically, it just has the URL. And the user ID and the password. So, okay. So here you have the community tenant URL and the user ID and the password. Just make sure that you are not sharing, since you both will be using the same credential. So make sure that you are not sharing this credential and the URL information with outside this training or anyone else, because it has a cap of some set fixed number of participants which can use it based on the consecutive login session. And if it reaches out or bounces, then the link will get disabled, and it gets really crazy to reset the password and all of that. So which is really next to impossible stuff. So just keep it with yourself for your own training purpose. That is one document. The other one is again the tech stack rough diagram, which I had shown you yesterday. So I wanted you to have this diagram all the time and keep it handy, and it will be kind of a baseline for you going forward. So yeah, so those are a couple of things which I did, and just and obviously all the video recordings of all the sessions would be available under the video recording section. And hence we Zarentech had already uploaded the first session video, which happened yesterday. So that is now available for you to view it at a later point or any point in time. So any questions as of now?
No.
No, Abhi.
Okay. So let's get started. And as we were discussing about the reports, reporting in Workday, which is it's an extensive topic. It's a building block topic, I would say, the baby step topic, which we would be going through for next couple of sessions, and obviously working on building the report. But to get the nuance of what reporting is all about, where and all this reporting gets into the picture when it comes to Workday. So with the help of Workday reporting, you would be able to develop your custom report, and these custom reports will eventually be exposed as an API to the external world. So that is something which we would be seeing, how that can be done. These reports can be manipulated, transformed into various kind of a UI representation of dashboard, or some pictorial representation, which will be helpful for a client or a user to see the same data in a variety of different format. That's a second use case. Third, obviously, someone using a Workday app would eventually also have the capability to use these reports, run them within the mobile capability. So it also is supported by both on the iOS and the Android devices. The next would be there is something called BERT. BERT is a tool which is an extended version of Workday, wherein for an organization, when you want to generate pay slips out of the Workday, right, or any kind of document which you want to create it, these reportings with the help of BERT tool can also help you generate such kind of document. So BERT is a separate tool which helps as a placeholder, and you can use any of these reports to basically get the data from Workday and send it to the BERT tool, and they would be able to help you in generating those kind of PDF documents or any kind of document. The next one is obviously the big data. When you're dealing with reports in Workday, there is no actual maximum limit of how you are extracting the data. With the help of custom report, you can extract up to 40,000, 50,000, and so forth kind of data information from Workday. So it's a kind of a gives you a provision where huge chunk of data can be generated and send it to your downstream system as and when required. And obviously, when we say that we are exposing our report as API, these reports are converted as a RAS. So RAS is nothing but a report as a service. So it's like you are leveraging these Workday report as a service, and these output of the report, which is, as we know, that the default format is the XML. So these reports can be leveraged to be used as a service by the external system. Now we saw that how do we find the reports in the Workday? Basically, there are multiple ways. Either you can provide a name. So let's say, for example, a sample report which we had created, either we can just give a name to that, and we would be able to search it, right? So when you search for a report, right? So this search capability is a very strong capability, wherein, as I mentioned, if you are not aware of the report name completely, right? This we know that we just gave an example by giving Karuna's name. So hence we will be able to remember, or if I give it as myself as Abhi_test, I'll be able to remember. But this is not the scenario in the production or the real-time scenario. You will have reports with whose names you would not be remembering, right? So in this case, there are few ways wherein you can actually manage it, how you can find the reports in the Workday if you have the right privileges. So when I searched it, for the Karuna, right? So either I could give the entire report name, or I could just give some keyword which I remember out of the name. You must be seeing why 2 times it is coming. So if you see over here, the very first one, if I open it, right, it actually takes me to the runtime window. See, this is the runtime. So the moment you click on this, as you can see, the distinguishes report versus report definition. So when you click on the report one, it takes you to the runtime wherein you can supply the launch parameter. And the moment you click OK, in the background, the report will be running on the Workday server's capability, and it will fetch you the output. But when you open the report definition, it basically takes you to the definition page or the home page of this report, as we saw it yesterday. And we will see all the features of the reporting now when we discuss this thing. So this is to give you a classification why 2 times you are seeing this report. Also, if you want some couple of shortcuts. So if you want to find your report, and again what you can do is RD and colon, and then you can just, let's say if you give Karuna, so RD stands for report definition. So the moment you hit enter, you will see your report definition listed over here. So RD stands for report definition. So that is also a one way of you can get or find your reports. The third way, again, obviously, is using a task called view custom report. So there is a task, and these few tasks will always be helpful for you. So the moment we saw it yesterday, the moment you click on this thing over here, again, you can provide, let's say Karuna in this case, and it will take you to the definition of the page, the same definition of it here. So that's another way. One more way with which you can help find your report is report tags. So that we did not discuss yesterday. So let's discuss that, which again is a good capability wherein you can find your report. So what you have to do is, so let's say you are on a report definition page, right? So the very first thing you would do is you'll go to edit. You're going to edit this report, and here you see report tags, right? So report tags is something you are creating your custom tags so that you can find your reports. So let's say if I am creating a tag, and let's say if I just put Abhi, so the tag name is, or maybe Ashwath. Okay. So the moment I do that, this report is now associated with the tag called Ashwath, and I'll go and click OK. And done. Okay. So now I'll go back to the home. So to reach home of any tenant, you just have to click on the logo of the Workday on the top left side. And now instead of doing RD, you have to do RDT colon. So what it means, the report definition tag. And now if let's say if I do Karuna, we won't get anything. There is nothing. But the moment I do Ashwath, I will have the definition of my report. So this is another way of finding your reports in the system, in the tenant. So we saw RD, RDT over here, right? So this is, so we saw how you can find the Workday standard reports. Obviously, you have the task Workday standard reports, and then it asks you for the category. So you can find all the standard report which are delivered by the Workday. We also talked about so if you look at this diagram, the screenshot, when you run a standard report based on the expenses, it gives you the list of all the reports which are available in tenant. And one important thing to notice over here is that each tenant might have a different count of report. When you run this report, because sometimes it also depends on the kind of access you have it in your system. So the tenant right now which I am using, I can see there are 53 items, means there are 53 reports which are related to the expense category for which I have access. So there could be possibility that there might be more reports, more standard reports in this tenant, but I don't have the visibility or I don't have the right privileges. So each and every object in Workday is associated with a security permission, and that security permission is associated with your account with which you have logged in at that moment. Okay, so it totally don't get surprised that if you see less or more count for these standard reports, or in a matter of not only standard report, but also custom report or whatever you are going to create it in future. So we saw like, how do we copy a standard report? We took an example where we copied a standard report, and obviously looked at the various sections. So let me open the same report, and now we have it with Ashwath. So it makes us easier to get to the definition of this report. And now, looking at the few of the options before we actually get into the detailing of it. So here, what you see is right now, since we had copied, remember, like we had copied from a standard report, and now it became a custom report. So the moment you copy a standard report, it becomes a custom report. And why the difference? Like you cannot add new fields or modify a standard report. To modify a standard Workday report, you have to take a copy of it and make it as a custom report. So as the name suggests, once you have made it as a custom report, now you can play around and add new fields or add new values, what you want to derive from your report. So let's look at each of these options, like, in this section, which are more important, like, when we are dealing or working with the any of the custom report. So the very first option is edit. Obviously, the moment you clicks on it, it takes you into the editable mode. So now if you see, everything over here is editable. So let's look at from the top. So you have the report name, which definitely you can modify it. So I'm just trying to modify expense underscore Karuna for now. You have the type, which is advanced. We'll talk about all these features, but right now we'll just scan it. So the type of this report is advanced. Data source, there is something which is predefined, a data source. Then you have a data source filter, data source type, and then you have a primary business object. Each report has its own unique primary business object. So I won't say unique, but I would say that each report is always associated with a single primary business object. Right now, if you see over here, this table, what it basically represents. So you are in the column section, and you have a business object, fields, and all this information. So the order, as the name suggests, you can change the order, move up and down, which of the values you want to make go up and down. Business object, we'll discuss it, what exactly are the business object. Field is the column which will become whatever is mentioned in the field, basically that becomes the column of your output, right? So we'll just open those two things in parallel and we'll see the output. Obviously everything is editable, so you can just, let's say, add company, hit enter, and you can derive the value. You have column heading override, what you actually want in the column name. So let's say the field name is company, right? So the column name, but I want something. So if I put company underscore name, and we'll see what is the difference, what it causes the difference, and how will it look like when we keep these ones as empty. So that is something. And then so let me just click OK. So whenever you modify or edit your report, you have to click OK, so that those modifications are over here. And then immediately you get three options, which we discussed. Done means you do not want to run that report. It is just it will register your modification. Run and test. So test, we know that testing means that we are running it for a random small set of population. And run means that this report, when it will get executed, it will execute for the entire population, whatever it corresponds in this particular tenant. So let's say if I am doing a test, and now remember this thing, and now I do need not to fill this information. Why? Because yesterday we had created a filter. So Karuna filter over here, and this data got auto populated, and all I have to do is just click OK. And since I am did test, did I do test? Okay, we'll just check it. So it returned me the data, right? And we saw that, okay. Okay, so now here is the thing to notice. And let me open the report definition over here. So first thing to notice is that I had modified my name, right? So here in the previous window, the report name was expenses Karuna underscore test. But when it ran, it became, now the report name has changed to expenses underscore Karuna, right? The next thing what we know is this is an older window. So obviously we had not given the company name, right? Like column heading override. So whatever you specify over here, it means that you are giving a meaningful name to the column. So it was empty earlier and I gave company underscore name, right? So if you see over the column name over here, it's company underscore name now. So this column heading override is actually to make sure that you are giving a meaningful name. And if you see whatever is listed under the field, these become the column for your report output. So over here, you have pay to email address. You have pay to email address. See, it would have come expense underscore pay for expense report line, but it has come as pay to, because that's a more meaningful name which we want to provide it for the user who is running this report. Any questions on this part?
Yeah, what is that requester or payee business object?
Oh yeah, that will come to it, Ashwat.
Oh.
Yeah, we'll because that's more important thing. So we'll deal with it. Right now, we are just looking at a skeleton of a report, how it actually looks like, so that you get a look and feel of how a Workday custom report basically looks like.
Okay, but the business object is nothing but, is that the table or is that the actual report?
Yeah. Just hold on for some time, and I'll definitely will get exact details around it, like how it
Okay, sure.
actually works in the entire ecosystem, right?
Okay.
Yeah. So let's go back to this report. So now if you see over here, we have one saved filter, which we had used it. We have the report tag as well for this report. And we saw that, how we went to the edit mode and created and modified this report. The next option, what we have it over here, right now, as we are looking at the skeleton, basically all these options, and once we look through this, then we will actually get into how these reports are created. How do I add field? What does this business object mean? What does this data source mean? All of that thing. Yeah. So next option, certainly, you can make a multiple copy of this same report. So you have this option which helps you to create a copy of report. So you can certainly, let's say, if I want another copy, so I can just directly provide, click OK, or maybe let's say giving a more meaningful name better. So this will just create an exact replica of this copy, and I can just click OK. So this is one more report which will now get is now available in this tenant system, right? So if I just have to again go to view custom report, and now if I just type Karuna, so now you will see two sets of report: the one initial report and the copy which we have created now. The second thing, run and test, we have seen it, how it works. Maintain Excel template is basically you can generate this data in a Excel template, but that is something which you can also leverage the same data output while you run this report. So how I'll show you that the more easier manner. So let's run this report. And over here, you have an option wherein directly you can export the output into an Excel file, and you will be able to uh, extract the entire information if you want to save it on your local machine. So since it has 11,000 records, so probably might take some time, but let it get generated and downloaded. So that's one option. And then comes the transfer ownership. So transfer ownership is something like, when you as a user, as a logged in user, are creating multiple reports in the system. So what happens is, like, by default, the ownership is in your name, basically whoever has created this report. And how do you know, who's the owner of this report? Under the share tab, right? So right now we were in the column tab where all this feature, which we'll see how we can, there is a tab called share tab. If you go over there, there are few options listed down over here. Report definition, sharing option. So you have three options provided by the Workday. Either you can keep the report only visible to you, don't share report definition. Means this report, if it is searched by some other user in the system, nobody will be able to access it, or they will not get when they search for Karuna, because it is specifically created by logged in user, and the security option is not share. The second is share with all authorized user, and the third one is specific groups or user. We'll see later when we talk about report security, what these two option actually means. When we look at what are authorized user and what are authorized groups in this case. And the ownership, as you can see right now, it is in the name of my account. Why? Because I have logged in this as a user, and hence it is in my ownership. But certainly, if you want to change the ownership, let's say you want the ownership to be in the name of someone else, so you can provide the ownership to someone in the system, some account, let's say Logan McNeil, and this report will go into the ownership of the that person. So the moment I click on it, so let's say if I'm just clicking over here, and I have now assigned this report or provided the ownership to Logan McNeil. Now Logan McNeil is a different user other than Abhi, right? So now if I wants to search this report, oh, that's strange. Oh, because I am logged in as a super user. 1 second. Let's look at that. Okay. Ownership is transfer. Yeah, now it is. Yeah. So now if you see, when as a user, when I'm trying to search for this report, or even if I do RDT Ashwath, I'm not able to see it. Or if I do RD Karuna, which is report definition, I will not be able to see it. Right now, how do I find it? Because I gave the permission to Logan McNeil, but I have lost the access to that report. So what the easiest way, and it's a kind of a hack, which you should be aware, there is one more task called edit custom report, right? So the moment you go over there and you can type Karuna, you will see your report over here. You can click OK. So this also is a task which helps you to modify a report. So you see over here, the ownership has now changed to Logan McNeil, right? So what you can do, I can go back over here, transfer the ownership and take it back to myself. And now if I search for Karuna, I can see the report definition. So transfer ownership is a very powerful way which Workday had provided, wherein you can play around with your reports and make sure that only the right set of folks or any dedicated user have the access to those reports, right? So right now this report is owned by me, uh, my account is because I have created, but certainly this transfer ownership will act differently when I give access to few set of user, right? These authorized user or security group, which we'll see when we talk about the security aspect. So that's another thing. So which we'll talk about. Now, going back to again these options. Obviously, at any point in time, you want to delete your report, you can do so by, okay, 1 second. So now if you see, this download is ready, which we were trying to export it into Excel. The moment I click on it, so it will save it, and the entire output can be generated into an Excel format right away and can be stored in your local machine. Yeah, here you go. You have the output in the same format, tabular format, which is the default representative format. You can see the entire output over here, right? Okay. Going back to the same option, so you can certainly delete your report using this option. Whichever report you want to delete it, you can certainly do. So if I want to RD and I look Karuna, so we should see 4 options over here. Did we delete it? No. Okay. Karuna. Okay. It is asking for. Where is our report? Okay, we had not. Yeah. So that's one more thing. So remember, guys. So when we created a copy of view custom report, and when I searched with Karuna, I get 2 options, right? So the copy one, the one which we had copied, does not have tag report definition, right? So I was searching it with the wrong tag, and hence, so this one, let's say if I want to delete it, I can directly go over here and delete this particular report. So now if I go again and look for view custom report option, so I see only the one which was our base report listed over here. So we scan this option. The second option, what we see is the audit trail. Now, at any point in time, if multiple folks are working on the same report and you want to check the audit trail, the history behind it, who created, what operations were done, who changed what, you can certainly provide a set of date range and just click OK, and it will give you all the options, what all things were done on this report. So from the bottom, you will be able to see all the operations. So we had taken it from expense without report, what all operations. So it basically gives you each level of transaction, what all in the background it happened for this particular report, right? Like we changed the name, we created a custom tag over here with the name and who had done what. So all those things would come in. Then we changed the ownership also from my account to Logan McNeil and from back to my account, right? So all these things from historical information, we will be able to help, we'll be able to get it with the help of audit trail. So that's again very helpful option provided by Workday. The third option is the calculated field, which is a complete different topic. We will be covering once we are done with the reporting. So hold on till that option. Favorite, again, you can add your favorite. And again, as I said, as a report tag or a report definition, you can provide it. Those options will be there. These are certain very generic options, which in a general scenario, you will not be using it. So probably I will skip them because to be honest, I haven't used them, these options, because these options you would be leveraging in a more beneficial manner, in a different way, or using a different task, which will look into it. The second option is the next option over here. And let me first look over here. So in an organization, right, when Workday is onboarded, so let's say tomorrow your organization decides to have Workday in their ecosystem. So this is one of the tenant, right? Like we are using a tenant, a superficial hypothetical tenant, and in your organization you will be given three different types of tenant. One set is called implementation tenant, where all the developers will work on it. The next set of tenant is called a sandbox tenant, wherein developers will do their development in the implementation tenant and move their changes into the sandbox tenant for testing. So if you have a dedicated testing team, they will use the sandbox tenant to test your data or test your reports or integration. And then once they sign off in the sandbox tenant, based on a production release from sandbox, ultimately the code or the report moves to the production tenant or the gold tenant. So these are basically three different types of tenants, which any organization will get it when you onboard a Workday, or when you onboard this SaaS product into your ecosystem. So how do you migrate these reports? You created these reports or integration, and obviously you cannot rebuild them again and again in your different environment, because sometimes even implementation, there could be some 4 to 5 implementation tenant given to you, right? So how do you migrate it? So hence Workday has couple of solution to migrate these reports or integration. So you can create a solution. So obviously, since we are dealing with single tenant at this point in time, we might not be able to migrate it, but what I'm trying to show you is like, how do you do that? So you can provide, let's say, so you create a solution. So let's say my solution, you just give a random name. This name can be anything. Then you give the name, what configuration type you want to migrate, right? So let's say right now this is custom report, and you have to give the name of the custom report. But see, when it comes to the configuration, what all things we can migrate. So let me just give you, highlight the ones which is meaningful for you. So calculated field, which we'll learn later, you can migrate calculated field. You can migrate integration, right? Integration is a big part. So integration is nothing but integration system. In Workday, it is called as integration system. You will be migrating integration system you use over here. Report tag, you can migrate even the report tag also, right? So over here, you get the option. So I'll just remove it. And so if I do click on save and migrate, right? Yeah, exactly. So right now, for migrating from one tenant to another, these tenants should be interlinked, connected to each other. So what happens is, like, the moment I click on save and migrate, the next window comes up, which asks me which target tenant I want to migrate, whether it is a sandbox, or whether it's a production, or whether it's a list of implementation tenant. So the moment I choose my target tenant, these objects, whatever I have specified, will start getting migrating, and it takes about not more than 5 minutes to migrate these objects from one tenant to another. Any questions?
No.
No, no.
Okay, cool. So let's keep on moving. So we saw, the prompts. We saw how we can set up the prompts basically at the runtime when we want to not to um, basically do not want to provide those launch parameter at the runtime. Then the next thing is like, there is something called hiding standard report. Now, think of a scenario that Workday, you have Workday standard report, right? Which we saw. And let's take expense. So these are the, like, with related to expense, we have 53 item and these are the names of the report, right? So when you want to make use of these reports, so think of a scenario that the requirement is that like, for Karuna or Ashwath, that they want to create a report which is exactly similar to this one, like, uh, uh, like everything, all the fields are similar, and the business says that, hey, keep the name also same, like, over here. So what happens is, like, someone who's trying to search with this same name in the system, in the search bar, they will get one report as a standard report and one as a custom report which you have created. And there could also be a possibility that Workday itself throw an error that you cannot have a same name report. That actually sometimes depends, like how you have set up the configuration, like, in the backend, like whether you are allowing same name reports or you don't allow. So if in case you want to hide the standard report, like, these report, there is a task called hide Workday delivered report. So standard reports are nothing but the ones which are delivered, right? So you can certainly pick up, go to this task and mention or add your reports which you want to hide it. And what it will do is, you will not be able to see these report when you try to use it in the filter condition. So these reports will go off. The problem with this task is that it requires a lot of privileges and not everyone will have the access to this task. So even if you try to search over here, this won't come up because it's more of a admin's role, or at a very administrator level, this privilege to this hide standard report is actually given, because this is not a preferred way where you would be given this access to it. Let's look at the next stuff. We saw, like, how we can build the custom report tags, like, how we can search with those report tags in the Workday ecosystem. And certainly, like, you can create your own tags, play around it, and obviously then only like, you'll be able to get to know how those tags basically work for it. So we saw this report, all custom report, which is again a report which at the runtime provides a lot of parameter, but even if you don't provide anything, as none of them is like, mandatory, you can just directly run it. Or if you know that, okay, if like, if you know that you want to only know the report which you have created in the system, right? Like, so there are two ways, either in the report owner. So let's say if I provide my name over here, so now instead of giving the entire set of report, it is giving me 27 items, right? And all these 27 items, if you see the report owner, it is on my name. So I have created these report in the system, hence my name is coming. But if I certainly don't pick up anything, like, then it will run for the entire tenant, like how, what all reports are there in this tenant. And then it gives you flexibility to search for, like, the based on the report type, the data source, if there are report tags. So let's say if we created a tag, right? And if you filter it with just that tag, so now you can see that your report is listed over here with the tag named Ashwath. You can see the owner who had created this report and the other relevant information. And since we haven't shared this report, right, with anyone, hence this is coming up as blank. And you can see the default is output is tabular format. So let's go back to the report. and explore more options. So we saw this custom report, we saw the solution part. Then one important thing now comes, like, the important feature of the report. And before that, let me go to the edit option and enable something for this report. So we saw this share tab, right? We have discussed this. Share tab has this information. Now look at the advanced tab. So if I go to the advanced tab over here, there are few options coming up. Like how do we, so yesterday there was a question that what is this optimize for performance mean? So the moment we check in, it basically refines the the engine and provides more memory allocation in the background for this report to run in the Workday. So we can optimize this, provide a better performance to this report using this option. An important feature over here, if you have to look, is web service option. Now you see this option called enable as a web service. This has not been checked. To make your any custom report expose as an API, you have to enable this report as a web service. So the moment you do it, you will be able to get the version with what API version you want to run it, and the namespace gets auto-populated. So the moment you select this option, enable as a web service, now this report can be, and this is one of the steps. This is not the entire step, but one of the steps which makes your report as a RAS, report as a service, or you can call it as which makes your report a one step closer to be used as an API. Okay, so you have to enable this option always. So make sure that you enable this option. Now you would say that why I have to go over here and do all of that stuff and enable this option. So let's look at what error. Okay, so let me just fix it and I'll tell you what this error is. Once we actually create a report from a scratch, we will get to know, we will understand few exceptions, few errors which comes up while building a report. So right now I have just enabled that option, and how you can see it under the advanced tab. Now you can see enable as a web services. Yes, right. So this is one option. And now comes like, how do we see the data? So basically now is the picture. So when there's an option called web service view URLs, right? And let me put it some data. I'm just randomly selecting some information. Okay. Okay. So the moment I selected that option, now Workday gives you a flexibility to generate the output of your data in so many different formats. So you have a REST, Workday XML, you have a simple XML. You can generate the same output in a CSV format. You can also leverage the JSON data, which can be leveraged in your downstream system. Now we know that the most common, the actual talking language is the XML. So if you want to see the same representation of the data in the XML format, so it basically asks you for the credential with which we have logged in to this tenant. So let me just provide it. Okay. And also at the same time, let me open this output in a tabular format so that you will be able to relate the same data and how it actually now represents the data. So this is an important feature because this will help you visualize how your actually data looks like for the downstream system, or basically as an API once this data is exposed. So see, when you run this report in a custom report in Workday, this is a visual representation in a tabular format, which is a default format. Certainly you can choose make a different pick a different layout to show in the UI, but in the background this report data is represented in this manner. So, and how do we read this data? So let's look at the first row. Maybe let me pick up any data. So expense, a particular expense. So for us to okay, so I'm just filtering it with one single record. Okay, so now if you see this record, right? So I'm filtering it with one row item, basically one record over here. I have a company name GMS South Africa. We have the date. We know that this expense report, whom we are supposed to pay, it's Amber. The email ID, Kamel is the manager, and the rest of the information with the amount of 182 US dollar. Now, if I go over here, so this is how your representation look like. So you have the Amber, and then you have the same representation, which 396, right? So you see that how the output looks like versus GMS South Africa, how the output looks like when it's trying to give you a same representation of the data in the XML format. And it's an extensive XML. Each record, it will bifurcate based on how your report entry. So if you see over here, and let me just close all the, so in Workday, when you actually run this report, right, it gives you record by record. But when it generates the XML output, how is the root element form? So you have the report data, which is the namespace. Remember the namespace which was there over here, and let me show it directly because this is more important. So if I go to the advanced tab, and you see once we enabled it, the namespace had auto-populated over here. So the same namespace, you can see it over here. And then each report entry is nothing but each record over here. How this XML representation would look like, right? So it will give you the data based on each report entry, and then you have the company name and the expense report, right? Like each expense report will have, and you have the workday information, you have the payee information. So all of this will form a report, a XML representation of the same data. So since it's a very complex output, but certainly when we create our own custom report with the simpler data, you will be able to relate more basically how the output data looks like. And if you see over here, when we had modified, right, column, so there are two things over here: column heading override and column heading override XML alias, right? So what it means, when you run this report in the UI, in the Workday UI, it consider column heading override. Whatever you display over here, it will show in the UI part of it, that the column over here. But when you want to make your XML, because see, XML tags, you cannot keep it very extensive, right? Else it will become very difficult to read it. So over here, if you see expense underscore report underscore line underscore date. So expense, so this is the tag. So XML is all about key value pair. So, and obviously always in XML, it is more preferred that you keep the key as small as possible and as meaningful as possible, right? So hence we can give a name, meaningful name over here, and it will give the same representation. So just to give you a simple example is like we have pay space 2 and then pay underscore 2, right? So pay space 2 is coming up for the UI representation, while we look at the same data pay underscore 2, and so you have pay underscore 2 in the XML representation. So Workday gives you a flexibility that you can set up these things also while building your custom report. And from where did you get this option? You go to the web service option, view URLs. One second. I think I just removed that. Okay, so here we have these option wherein we can pick and choose the format which Workday should generate so that we have the data exported in that manner. Now, this is a manual process right now. Whatever we are discussing, it's a manual process, but it's a manual process of showing you how this Workday report, which is called as a custom report, can be leveraged as an API to the external world. Now, external world will use this XML as an output, but this is a manual process, how what we have seen to generate the data. Later point in time, when we actually look at the API concept, how do we register this custom report as an API? How do we configure it? That time we'll see using the Postman that how we can leverage this report as a direct API call, right? So also, like, when I provided, and for one more time, let me just provide it. I wanted to show you the URL as well, because that's something which will become like an API URL. Yeah, so the moment, let's say when we clicked on Workday XML and it asked for us the, already the credential has been there. So look at the URL. So over here, this becomes your API URL over here, and how it classifies is you have the base URL till CCX, right? It's a tenant base URL wherein Workday 2. Now, this is also important thing to know is that how do we read this URL, the complete URL, any URL of Workday. So Workday has its own list of data centers, like, where all that servers, and how Workday has classified its data center across globe. So they have classified based on like WD1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and also whether it's a implementation data center, production, and all of it. So hence this signifies the data center. This is the base URL. Then you can see that this report has been exposed now as a service. You can see the custom report too. You have the tenant name. So tenant name is turnkey underscore DPT1. You have the report owner's name. Then you have the report name. And then after that, whatever you see is the launch parameter, what you had provided in the report. So if I just copy paste and open it. So if you see over here, the one which I've selected, so the company ID, it's a Workday. So since I had selected multiple IDs, and these are the Workday IDs. Basically, each and every object in Workday is associated with a unique identifier. So over here, it's a unique identifier of those companies which I had selected, then currency again, and then the launch parameter, right? So this becomes your URL when you expose your report as an API. So this is that thing. Okay, so we saw custom report. Let's look at a few more options. Okay, we saw view URL. Okay, now let's go back to the edit window again. And again, look at few of the skeleton structure before we actually look at what each of these actually means. So again, as I said, you have more flexibility of options provided. Under the column section, whatever you add in the fields will become your the columns of your report output. You got a sort option wherein you can sort your data, basically the output data, based on any of the Workday fields or anything. Like, whatever you have listed down, you can sort with anything. So sorting, as I say, it's like whatever you want to sort. And again, it makes sure that the data type, whether you are sorting, let's say, by first name or last name. So it will give you the direction also, like, what direction you want to choose it, ascending, descending, and all of that. And we'll get into the deep dive when we actually build report and see these options. But right now we're just looking at the skeleton part. Filter, again, filter is basically, as the name suggests, it helps you to filter out kind of a where condition, to filter out the data based on your logic, what you have entered, right? So filter, and there are two types of filter which any custom report Workday provide. There is a filter and there is a sub filter. We'll see what's the difference between them, which one is executed first, when the report is running in the background, and how it works. We have an option called prompt. Prompt is nothing again but like runtime parameter. Like, if you want to add more parameters at the runtime for user to enter it, some values, that time you will specify all those values over here. So right now for this report, you see all these parameters are part of prompt. So remember, we were supplying company name, and then you have the option whether you required or not required, right? So if you look at the required ones, the ones which are checked, we are giving the export date from and to, right? So those has been classified over here. Then we need to enter the currency. So the moment we say required, it means it is mandatory that we have to supply some value, and hence it is mandatory over here. So prompts will be part of over here. Then output section. So here is that part wherein you can define what output in the UI representation it should look like. So few options which you have given over here, but the most preferred is the tabular format, because that's a more easier option for you to have a look and feel. Certainly charts is something which again can be used, but Workday only recommends an option unless there is a separate requirement for, like, a specific one. But tabular format is the most preferred one, wherein you can see the representation of your output. Then few more option as like enable as worklet. You can directly have these reports available in your worklet, and I'll show you what is worklet. Worklet is nothing but as an application on the home page. So I'll show you just right after this. So if you enable it, this report will be available under the workload option. So we check the share option and the advanced option. So let's go up. I'm going to navigate to the home page. So under your profile, right? If you look at the top, second. Yeah. So over here also, Workday gives you flexibility that, like, just by directly, if you want to navigate on your data, you can certainly do so by going to the My Reports, and it will help you see the output data, what files have been generated. So under your name, we had generated the files, so all the files will be listed over here, which can be directly downloaded. Like if you click on, it's a hyperlink, the moment you click on it, these files will be easily are downloadable. So we saw the custom reports, like, how we can let's look at. Okay, so before we actually, any questions before we move on, or look at few basic stuff on the custom report? Now since you guys have access to the tenant, just try logging in, and let me know in case if you have any issues. Not now, but yeah, obviously after session. But if in case just you find any issues, just put up your thoughts in the discussion board, and I'll take a look during my daytime and see if you are still facing the issue or if your access is sorted for that.
Abhi, I have two questions, Abhi.
Sure.
The first one is basically, can I build a form-based report within Workday? Like form-based meaning, let's say, for example, you're filling out tax return, right? So basically, you have like a column number or probably the box number or something like that, where a value will be fused in, right? So can we build that kind of reports using Workday?
Okay, so yeah, so a simple answer to that question would be, so the science behind this custom report, like it pulls the data whatever is available in Workday. Right. So if your tax related information, if you are storing that information within your Workday, then there will be, with the help of business objects or anything, you will be able to extract that information using a report. Definitely, for sure. But it totally depends on your customization, how your tenant or your organization have set up that information. Now, tax related information, as I understand, is in most of the organization is taken care by a third party payroll vendor. Like, what all tax implication would be there for different tax slabs, or in case of US, it's a W-2 filing, or in case of India, it's a provident fund or PF and all the different things. So those data is something what Workday does not prefer to store in their system, but want to rely on the third party system. But if you are storing that information in Workday, you will certainly be able to extract that information using a custom report.
Got it. I meant to say, like, basically, like the layout itself, can we like mimic a form, like basically like pixel reporting, like basically row 1 is maybe box 1 in a tax return, row 2 is another box in a tax return or something like that.
But you will be able to create a form, but where will you get the data from? See, you created a form, right? So form creation is fine, but how will you populate that form with that relevant data? Where like if your company has 1,000 employees, now you want to return the data, right? Where is that data residing? If Workday is not the source of truth of that information, your form will not return any data, right?
Right. Yeah. Normally, see, what we have done at our company is basically we have data, let's say some AWS system or something like that. We use PRT reports on top of that. And we normally like basically get the like queries behind the scene, like basically like for each box we build up a query or something like that. And we drag and drop at let's say a certain location on the report layout. So that way we build the forms, and we usually build it each box using underlying query.
Okay.
So that is how we do internally in our organizations.
No, so in Workday, it is all about like when you are extracting the data. So, just to give you a background, like, when as an employee or as a person, if I am loading some data into my tenant, right, or I'm adding some information to my tenant, anything what you see on Workday tenant, in the background, it is stored in the form of objects, and these
Right.
are nothing but business object. And that's where when we meet for the next time, we will be creating tomorrow a custom report. We will understand this business object. Everything in Workday is stored in business object form.
Right.
So unless you have data stored in a business object or any other object, you will not be able to derive that information using a custom report. So if you see, like, before we actually understand a business object, just by looking at it, this report which we created has a primary business object called expense report line. And if you notice, most of the values, so you now you understand that the whatever is displayed under field is basically the column of your data, is basically the columns, the data output, right? And how you are deriving this data with the help of a business object, right? So you may use a primary business object, which is export report line in this case. So you see some of the business objects are export report, and then you see some are different, right? Requester or payee. So these are called related business object. So in Workday, anything what you store, what you load goes into an object, and then you have to make use of those objects to extract the information back to for your own purpose, whether you want to send it to the downstream system or any other system. Does that make sense? Guys, can you hear me?
Yes, Abhi. Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, okay. I thought there was some issue with my system. Okay, so let's look. I actually wanted to cover a topic which was more on the business object, but then it would take longer time. So let's do one thing, Karuna and Ashwath. We'll pause for today till here, because from in the next session, I would be started working on the business object and show you the data sources, and we will actually build a report from scratch and put up all these filters, sub filter, and understand each of it, so that when we do this activity in one session, you will have a roundabout idea of the entire execution of a custom report, that how it executes in the background step by step, because it's not something that you just clicked on run and it ran all of a sudden and generated the output. There are layers which executes one by one and gives you a final refined output.
Okay.
Any questions?
Abhi, I have one question actually. See, basically in our organization, what we have one requirement is basically we have an internal sandbox where we are supposed to build a report. And basically once a report is developed, we have to ship the report back to a customer's instance. So how is it possible? I mean, as you mentioned in the class, we cannot really like migrate to an environment which is not linked to the tenant, right?
Right. So you want to export to a third party system, right? To the external VNet, basically, because both the parties on a different VNet, both have their own protocol security and all of that setup, right? So my question is, the source of truth would be the Workday or some different system?
It's Workday, I guess. For now, I think that's what they mentioned. I mean, I never started the report, but I reached out to some of the internal issues. They said it's not possible, but again, that question lingers in me. I mean, if it's not possible,
no. So
I mean,
what
how
we'll
can?
do? Yeah, so
Yeah.
there comes the picture of creating integrations, and in the integration also, again I'll go back to my same diagram to give you a high level or a pictorial representation which will help you understand. One second. So if you look at this diagram, right, when we spoke about this output file, right, now this output file can, I mean, like whoever is expecting this output file could either be sitting within the same organization or a third party system, like, you know, whoever is this receiver end. Now if you want to send this information from Workday to the third party system, which is totally on a different ecosystem, you will have to use or build integration, and then you will have to supply a delivery step and provide a protocol, like, you know, whether you are using a SFTP protocol or a file transfer protocol to send your file to the third party system. So
well, actually, it's not the output itself. We want to send the spec, because see, at the end of the day, we are creating a report definition, and we want to ship the definition to the customer's instance where they can run the report definition on top of their data.
Okay, got it. So you mean to the you mean the report definition, right?
Right.
So a simple answer globally to this problem is that this is not possible at this point in time. Definition cannot be exported from one system to another system. It can only be exported within the tenants within an organization. The only best way what can be done, or what Workday does it, you can generate the Excel of this definition. So I have this definition, right? So Workday gives you an option to generate the Excel. This can be shared with the client, and client will have to build this definition on its own. So if you see over here, I generated the definition in the Excel, and see what all things are there. You have the basic information in the problem, then you have the columns. So you have all the columns which were part of this report in the columns tab, sorting, filter, sub filter. So basically it generated this entire skeleton in the Excel, and this is the only thing which can be shared and exported to them.
Got it. So even the calculated fields, logic, and all, everything will be there. Okay.
Everything will be there. Yeah, everything will be coming up as part of this. So Workday gives you two provision, either to do it in the Excel or in the PDF format, and that can be shared.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions, Karuna or Ashwath?
Nope, nothing from my side.
Okay, cool then. So we'll just take a pause for today, and like, you know, when we meet tomorrow, we'll just look into the like, you know, the actual build a report from scratch, and that will actually gives you more idea. But meanwhile, please look at your access to the tenant. Like, you know, just try to play around with the stuff what we have done till now, which will give you at least familiarize with the task and all of it, so that like, you know, once you start building reports, and like, you know, you will know how to find your reports, how to like, you know, look up things if they are not directly visible to you, and obviously the basic navigation.
Yeah, sure.
Okay then. Yeah, thank you guys.
Thanks a lot, Abhi. Yeah, take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Yeah, good night.
Thank you for attending the session. I hope you all enjoyed it. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Also, feel free to ask your questions in the comment section below, and we will reply to them at the earliest.